sonnet number 130 of approximately 167 sonnets written by William Shakespeare. And it's a really nice sonnet to do because it's quite easy and simple to understand. And it's also pretty darn savage. It is an anti-love poem. But just to give you a little bit of background. So first of all, there was a guy, a well-known poet at the start of the Italian Renaissance period, called Francesco Petrarca, who later became just known as Petrarch, and that is where the Petrarchan Sonnet comes from. He used to write poetry that was very like flamboyant, and if you wanted to describe how beautiful your lover was, you would use all these like mystical, exaggerated comparisons. Her eyes are twinkling stars in the night sky and that kind of stuff, okay? Like hyperbolic statements weren't real. So William Shakespeare came along and he was like, okay, I'm going to kind of make a mockery of Petrarch. I'm going to like discuss or describe my lover and say that she's none of those things. Alright? So I don't know how far he would have gotten before he would have gotten slapped in the face. But anyway, he tries his best to redeem himself later on. Alright, so let's have a look. This mistress here is not like the mistress today, okay? This mistress refers to my lover, okay? Her eyes are nothing like the sun. Okay, so that first line tells me that probably the conventional love sonnet would have described the lover's eyes with being bright, beautiful like the sun or something. Alright? So he's saying, oh, I'm sorry, her eyes are not like the sun. And then coral, which you use to polish to make nice jewelry, if you go and Google it, it's actually very beautiful. He's saying that that is far more red than my lover's lips are red. So again, the usual way of describing your lover's lips would have been something like her lips are as bright and vibrant as polished coral or something. And he's saying, no, coral is more red. If snow be white, like if you want to say, you know, the expression as white as snow. So if you want to say something is as absolute white as snow, well then I'm sorry, her breasts are dun. And dun means brownish grey. Okay, so her breast doesn't necessarily have to be her actual breasts. Okay, it could be just her skin in general. But the conventional poetry or sonnet would have said how her skin is as delicately white as snow and whatever, okay? And he's saying, no. If hairs be wires, well then black wires grow on her head. She's got wires growing on her head because her hair is not nice and soft and silky, like it would normally be described. Okay, so it's getting more and more savage. I've seen roses damasked, that's how you pronounce that, damasked, red and white. And so you can get roses like where the petal isn't just all red or all white, it's like it's got red and then some white in it. Think of like you can get a radish as well, where it's like pink and then it goes into like white. Okay, so he's saying, I've seen those roses, but I don't see how those roses look like my lover's cheeks. Because remember, like in those days, the ladies often like use stuff to put on their face to make their skin really white, and then they would have used rouge to make their cheeks red. Okay, and then if you had red cheeks and white skin like that, then you were classified as beautiful. And he's saying, well, I don't see that in her face. So all these things that he's saying, I don't see this and I don't see that, these are all like descriptions that would have been stereotypically used by Petrarch and other poets of the time. Then he goes on to say, and in some perfumes is there more delight than in the breath that from my mistress reeks. So, okay, fair enough, not all perfumes, but I'm afraid to say there are some perfumes that give off a better scent than your breath. Okay, but then he ends that line with saying, from my mistress reeks. Now the word reeks, if something reeks, it smells really, really bad. Okay, so maybe saying in comparison to some of those really nice perfumes, your breath reeks in comparison. Then there's a little bit of a compliment here where he says, I love to hear her speak. Okay, so it's nice listening to her talk. Yet, that conjunction yet there is telling me, however, okay, but Well, I know that music has a far more pleasing sound, so I'm afraid to say music sounds better though. Okay, so even though you talk alright, but usually it would have been like her voice is sweet music to my ears or something. He's saying, no, music sounds better, period. I grant I never saw a goddess go. Like, okay, I admit, I grant, I've never actually seen a goddess, like walk or move, however they go. Never seen it. But what I do know is that my mistress, when she walks, she flipping treads on the ground like a normal person. There's nothing fancy about how she moves. Okay. Lastly, we get to the last two lines, and yet. So, like as I mentioned there, this and yet is like, hang on a second, okay? But, by heaven, I think my love as rare as any she belied with false compare. Belied means give like a false impression of something. So, what he's saying is that all those ladies who've been described in such exaggerated means, okay, you, my lover, are just as beautiful and special as all of them. So he's trying to make up for his, insults, really, even though that's not what his intention is. He's trying to say, he's not trying to insult her, he's trying to say, look, all these things are not true, like if you want to be real about it, okay? But I'm saying that despite all of those things that you aren't, I love you as you are. Oh, that's sweet. I love you as you are, just as much as if you had all those unrealistic characteristics. Okay, you're just as special as all those other women. All right. Now let's look a little bit. Okay, so that's the poem. Let's look a little bit at what makes this a Shakespearean sonnet. So it's really easy. First of all, how do we know it's a sonnet? Because it's got 14 lines. All right, and it's written in Imbec Pentameter. Now, like if one or two lines is like out, like let's say there are 11 syllables in one line, or there's 9 syllables in the other line. If the general consensus is that there are 10 syllables per line, then we can say it's written in Imbec Pentameter. Okay, and I haven't written that here, but let's go and write here. Imbec Pentameter. 10 syllables per line, 5 stressed, 5 not stressed. Okay, so for example, if snow be white, why then her breasts are done. Okay, 10 syllables, so that works. Then we look at the fact that it's got 3 quatrains in a rhyming couplet. So just because this is all one stanza doesn't mean that they're not there. Okay, so a quatrain is a stanza of 4 lines. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4. That's one quatrain. 1, 2, 3, 4 is another quatrain. 1, 2, 3, 4 is another quatrain. And then I've got my rhyming couplet there. And I know it's a rhyming couplet because I've got rare, compare. Both those lines are ending in a similar rhyme scheme. Okay. So this is easy as well because it's written by Shakespeare. So obviously it's a Shakespearean / Elizabethan sonnet. The only other sonnet is a Petrarchan / Italian sonnet. Let's say, for example, it wasn't written by Shakespeare or Petrarch, and we needed to know what kind of sonnet it was. How would we know if it's got an octave and a sestet, or 3 quatrains and a rhyming couplet? Easy. All you do is you go down to the last 2 lines, you see, ooh, rare, compare. It's rhyming, so that's a rhyming couplet. So a Shakespearean sonnet has a rhyming couplet, so therefore it's a Shakespearean sonnet. Alright, and the rhyme scheme will always be A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. It'll always be that. Okay, you can see we've got an alternating rhyme here. And lastly, at the bottom, I've put there, unlike other sonnets, the speaker doesn't need to use flowery terms or fancy comparisons. He loves her for who she is. Oh, that is so sweet. And that really is, guys, the poem.